Crazy-Quilt. Crazy-Quilt is the name of several characters in DC Comics. Publication history. The Earth 2 Crazy-Quilt first appeared in Boy Commandos #15 March 1946 and was created by Jack Kirby. The Paul Decker version of Crazy-Quilt first appeared in Black Hawks #180 and was created by artist Dick Dillon and an uncredited writer. The unidentified female version of Crazy-Quilt first appeared in Villains United #2 and was created by Gail Simone and Dale Eaglesham. Fictional character biography. Earth 2 Crazy-Quilt. Crazy-Quilt is an unnamed noted painter who leads a double life as a master criminal. He gives the plans for his crimes to various henchmen through clues left in his paintings. His criminal empire crashes to a halt when one of his henchmen double-crosses him. Blinded by a gunshot wound, he volunteers for an experimental procedure that restores his vision, but is unfortunately left unable to see anything but bright colors. In his second published appearance, this is combined with a special helmet that emits bright-colored lights, enabling him to see under most circumstances. Paul Decker. In a 1963 issue of Black Hawk taking place on Earth 1, a fence named Paul Decker uses the name Crazy-Quilt, but the title heroes capture him. As a result of this appearance, some resources report the original Crazy-Quilt's true identity as Decker. This includes at least one comic, the Kevin Smith-penned Batman, The Widening Gyre #4. However, the earlier Batman Encyclopedia, another official source endorsed by DC Comics, states that Decker is a separate character from the original Crazy-Quilt. In the post-crisis, Paul Decker's history is similar to the Earth 2 Crazy-Quilt. Crazy-Quilt's sight is restored briefly for a time after he kidnaps a surgeon to assist him. Batman and Robin intervene. In self-defense, Robin reflects the madman's light beams back into his newly restored eyes. Unintentionally, Quilt is permanently blinded. Obsessing over his young adversary, he becomes one of the few Bat-villains to hate Robin more than his mentor. Later, thinking to enact his revenge upon Grayson, he mistakenly takes out his aggression on Jason Todd, who was new to the role at the time. Todd is nearly beaten to death. Again, it is Robin who is pivotal to stopping Crazy-Quilt's plans. Crazy-Quilt later fought Jason Todd after knocking Batman unconscious. When Ra's al Ghul caused a mass prison break at Arkham Asylum and Blackgate Penitentiary, Crazy-Quilt was among the freed inmates that worked for Ra's al Ghul by abducting Alfred Pennyworth, Commissioner James Gordon, Vicky Vale, Harvey Bullock, and Julia Pennyworth. Crazy-Quilt was later seen in Arkham Asylum when Batman was Arkham Asylum's latest patient. He joins the other inmates in attacking Batman, who ends up defeating them. During the Underworld Unleashed storyline, Crazy-Quilt was among those who were offered a carved black candle of Neron. Crazy-Quilt appears in the Belle Reve riot in Justice League #34, lugging around the eviscerated body of the prison warden. The prisoners, along with much of humanity, were being affected by the entity Mageddon. It had affected fellow prisoner, telepath Hector Hammond, who then altered the minds of the inmates. Crazy-Quilt also has a role in one of the many reincarnations of the secret society of supervillains. He and dozens of villains gather in response to the JLA New Moon base and extended team efforts. During the meeting, Quilt has his outfit insulted by the Monocle. The meeting turns out to be a JLA trap, and all the villains are captured. In the New 52, a 2011 reboot of the DC Comics universe during the story arc Batman Endgame, Dr. Paul Decker appears as the person Batman suspects supplied the Joker with his newest serum, but is found out to not be guilty. He is also a member of the Doctor's Three along with Dr. Death and Hugo Strange. Decker calls out, claiming that the Joker has given him the opportunity to become one of the Dionysian men as well, and gleefully injects himself with a syringe despite Batman's warnings. Almost immediately, Decker's tissues begin to decay and rot from his body, and he drops from the window into the waiting crowd of infected who tear what remains of him to pieces. In a nod to his pre-crisis alter ego, Decker is found covering his nude body with a patchwork quilt. Female Crazy-Quilt. Apparently, the society, led by Alexander Luthor Jr., has in its roster a new version of Crazy-Quilt, a female one with the characteristic costume and vision helmet of the previous villain. She has appeared in the Villains United series. She works with many other supervillains to take down the Secret Six. In Outsiders #50, she is captured by the Suicide Squad. In the Secret Six series, she is one of the villains who accepts the offer of a bounty on the heads of the Secret Six from mysterious crime boss Jr. She is possibly shot by the Six and stabbed in the stomach by Scandal. She later appears in James Robinson's Justice League, Cry for Justice mini, as one of the many villains who attacks the team. Powers, abilities, and equipment. Crazy-Quilt has a helmet that allows him to hypnotize his victims using flashing lights of various colors. It can also project lethal laser beams, blinding lights, and functions as artificial eyes since his own eyes no longer function. The lenses feed their input signal straight into his brain. In other media. Television. The Paul Decker version of Crazy-Quilt is featured in Batman, The Brave and the Bold, voiced by Jeffrey Tambor. He has a non-speaking cameo in the episode Trials of the Demon, where he is shown robbing the Gotham Art Museum until he is defeated by Batman and is taken away to Arkham Asylum. In Night of the Huntress, he is shown amongst the inmates trying to escape from Blackgate Prison. Crazy-Quilt plays a major role in the episode The Color of Revenge, where he tries to get revenge on Robin for blinding him back when he and Batman worked together. He escapes to Bloodhaven, robs STAR Labs, and builds a giant laser cannon to kill Robin and destroy Bloodhaven. He is defeated by Batman and Robin and is taken back to Arkham Asylum. The Paul Decker version of Crazy-Quilt appears in DC Superhero Girls, voiced by Tom Kenny. He is a teacher at Superhero High. Film. Crazy-Quilt appears in the Lego Batman movie. Video games. Crazy-Quilt is mentioned briefly in Batman: Arkham City. When several inmates talk about Two-Face being defeated at the courtroom, one of the inmates mentions that there are so many rumors as to who took out Two-Face that some people are saying Quilt took out Dent, which no one believes. One of the inmates calls Quilt a cheap, a whole villain. Crazy-Quilt is referenced in Batman: Arkham Knight. Around Gotham City, there are several laundromats referencing Quilt, as in Quilt's laundromat, Crazy Prices.